Thank you very much, the Professor Barnes and Professor Lee, for joining us for this discussion today. I can see that this has been a fantastic congress so far. As you two very well aware, neurology is a big deal now. The global burden of disease data tell us that neurological disorders cause number one disability, affecting the significant number of global population. Let's start the discussion from Professor Barnes. How does the WFNR respond to this?
We respond by many different ways. We have this sort of congress, which attracts many thousands or so people, and that's important, but it doesn't touch everything we need to develop in neurorehabilitation. So we have, in addition to this sort of meeting, regional meetings where more local people can come, and particularly we focus on education. So we have what's called a flying faculty, so experts in the subject can fly out to an area that requests that particular expertise, and we provide the funding for them to get there. So basically we focus on education in lots of different ways to try and improve the standard in neurorehabilitation across the globe.
What are your comments on the training and research?
There's a lot of research, basic science research we've heard here at the Congress, a lot of progress, which is really important. It's lovely for the people here to hear about those developments, and that's great. But we've got to remember that some of those developments are expensive, so we shouldn't forget also how we put services into low-income countries. And cheap options are just as important as the more expensive options. So we need to remember those with little income, and there's still things we can do, a lot of things we can do to improve neuro services in developing countries as well as the developed world.
Thank you. Professor Lee, you have an interesting background with your academic the activities from psychiatry to neurorehabilitation, and you are a current leader, current president, and I was there for your fabulous presidential lecture today. What are your comments on the WFNR response to the alarming the burden of neurological disorders and disabilities?
I think there's many different ways to deal with this. Okay, number one, as Professor Michael Barnes said, our strength partly on the education and partly encouraging the research. And as an international society, we try to raise funding to support these activities, to find faculties going to different countries, particularly those low or middle income countries, to provide training so that to raise up the standard of the knowledge and skills in neurorehabilitation, so that the local professionals providing this type of neurorehabilitation service, the standard will be raised. That means what are we targeting is train the trainer, okay, and then they can train more local people to provide good services. And the other aspect we could do, for example, what's happening in this Congress in Mumbai. There's concurrent public lectures, okay, so that the expert can, from different parts of the world, can provide information to the patients who have neurological disability, and they are aware what could be available in other parts of the world. And these patients used to have patient groups, and they are very good in lobbying for the politician or insurance company to provide with a higher standard of service to their need. I think that means directly or indirectly, we are making some changes in terms of provision of service at a high level of medical skills, and at the same time, through the patients group, lobbying more resources for their service.
I totally agree. I think I was at the public forum yesterday and this morning. There were two heartwarming sessions. It is fabulous to see all these non-governmental organizations joining together with organizations such as WFNR, WFN to fight together to bring justice to these patients, and then promote the policymakers supporting us to do what we can do best. My next question is, every time when I come to this sort of a meeting, whether it is WFN or WFNR or SSA or American Stroke Association, I see fabulous lectures, I see fabulous workshops, But then when I go back to the clinic or when I go back to the emergency department, I see a huge difference between what we know as evidence and what we practice. Developed world as well as developing world. What can we do about the limiting this the gap between evidence and practice, other than attending this sort of conference and other than expanding ourselves to bridge a nice bridge between the resourceful countries and resource limited countries?
Okay, it's a practical problems. Okay, point number one, even we have good evidence, some clinicians may not apply the good evidence in their practice. And that means we need some behavioral modification to help the frontline staff who are providing service to provide the best service to the patient. Okay, probably evidence-based should be a must to our patient. Okay, how we could do that? That's why we have a special interest group, the clinical pathway. That's why we try to set up what is good practice, okay, what the appropriate clinical pathway. And probably end of this year from the federation we may have a guideline on the good practice for stroke rehabilitation. That's why this is the direction